Hello, welcome back to From the Beale and the Burnley podcast. This is a rapid reaction to, wait for it, Bournemouth 1, Burnley 1. It's ended. The 7-game losing streak is over. It feels a bit more than a draw to me, but Greavesy and Woody are here. Greavesy, kick us off. Instant reaction to Burnley getting a point.
I said on in the preview, I just thought something might happen today. It's about as far away from Turf Moor as you can get. You know, the fans who've travelled there, we know are going to be 100% behind because they've made that long trek to Bournemouth. And I was just so pleased. Pleased for Broja, pleased for Edwards, pleased for those Burnley fans who'd made that horrible journey the weekend before Christmas to Bournemouth. And you're right, Simon, it feels more than it's only a single point on the board, but it just feels like something has lifted, and I guess that's what you get when you've had 7 defeats on the trot. So, yeah, absolutely buzzing tonight, Simon.
Excellent. Woody, your reaction when you saw that team lineup, you said to me, he's picked the battlers and the leaders here, hasn't he? And that proved to be sort of the case, really, didn't it?
Yeah, you would have thought, an hour beforehand, that looked a little bit more like a League Cup, FA Cup kind of a team. But they were, you look at the Worrells, the Laurents, the Walkers, the Cullens, the Flemings, etc. They've all been captains for the clubs previously. They came as club captains. And it's obvious that we've missed some of that in these past few weeks. And there's been a reaction to that. But as well, look what happens when you cut the shit out. There was only one minor aberration today. That was Laurent falling on his arse, which isn't really, a player mistake so much as anything, but we actually cut that out and we come away with a point. So, not bad.
He went back, Greavesy, didn't he? He's gone back to what he knew, which was, as he pointed out in that emotional press conference on Friday, we had been competitive in the games where, earlier in that losing streak, and you could argue as he does throughout that losing streak, but certainly the earlier part of it, we were competitive, playing with that 5 at the back. He's gone back to that. He knows that he can give himself some protection with that. And it did seem to work, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I looked at the team and obviously the disappointment of not having Esteve in there because he's got a knock or whatever. It then becomes that kind of, cruel Christ, he's digging in. We know JBL and Anthony can't play in the same side together. It's that whole kind of, conundrum that we've seen. I thought both wingers actually were pretty poor, if I'm being really honest. Yeah. But I do wonder now whether that protection that back 5 gives, and I thought Laurent, again, was having a good game until he slipped, and there's nothing anybody can do about that slip. I then now think, because of Edwards's impact that he had, and maybe it is just because he's a substitute, I don't know, but that back 5 allows him almost to have what I'd call lazier wingers. You know what I mean? In terms of Chownery perhaps isn't going to track back, Edwards isn't going to track back as much, because you've got Pires, who was up and down again without really being sparkling, gave the ball away, I think, just
worked his socks off.
But works his socks off. You know what I mean? Walker, we know, is going to get up and down. Laurent just floating about in a kind of weird centre-back, almost dropping into right-back position, I think gives him now the chance to be a bit more like, right, let's try and make a bit of a change. 'Cause actually, I thought when Edwards came on and when Broja came on, big word for Broja. I mean, what a bloody header that is. What a cross from Edwards. Broja worked his arse off in that kind of 20 minutes when he came on and looks like he's got power, looks like he's got a bit of pace, looks like he's got purpose. And, maybe Fleming had kind of softened that defence up a little bit to allow that. So
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think he got his tactics spot on in terms of his team selection. I have to say, I was a bit like, God, this is going to be dull. And it was a bit of a non-football match in the first half, weren't it? It's going to be more excitement for the Strictly Come Dancing final a bit later on tonight in England. But yeah, hey, listen, there's a lot of people out there, I think, now have just got it in for Scott Parker. Whatever Scott Parker does won't be good enough. We have resisted the calling for his head because I think there's signs of what he's trying to do. It may end up being that we're just not good enough, and at times today we just didn't look good enough. But by God, using a word that Scott Parker says, we've battled, and you know what? Anybody who's having a go at Parker tonight, give it a rest, eh? Let's have a drink. Let's celebrate getting off this run of 7 defeats on the trot. For fuck's sake, just smile and stop being so bloody miserable.
I must admit, I was looking at social media during the game, and obviously, you pick up bits of statistics and stuff that are interesting by doing that. And I think after an hour, it was like 30% possession for Burnley and 0 attempts on goal. And that did tell you what kind of performance it was. It was a scrappy defensive performance. But while you're on social media, you're also seeing these people almost now reveling in how bad it was, or sort of gloating about things after the goal goes in. And I just think that's got to be got rid of. You've got to, if they're not going to sack him, you've got to get behind him. They're not sacking him now. There's no way he's being sacked after that performance. And he went into that press conference as well on Friday, didn't he, Woody? And basically put it all out there, really. And he's had a reaction, hasn't he?
He has, and that's the point, isn't it? He's had a reaction, and what he said on Friday obviously came to fruition today in terms of the fact that he understood what the problem was, that it wasn't necessarily performances, it was individual mistakes without calling individuals out. And once we've cut that out, it's a very different performance, and it's a very different Burnley side, and it's a very different result. And so this idea of getting rid of Parker, when you can get, the kind of performance that we've had today out of him, and it wasn't pretty. I'm not arsed about it being pretty.
No.
And I'm really not. The fact that they've dug in, made it ugly, Bournemouth couldn't work out what they had to do against it. I mean, yeah, I'll take that for the next couple of months, just to get us out of this shit.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't thrown players under the bus, Greavesy, but Hartman not even getting on the bench was a bit of a statement, wasn't it? After what, I mean, basically, it feels a little bit like Jamie Redknapp had an influence on our team selection there.
Yeah, he didn't even let him get on the bus at the training ground to get to the airport to fly to Bournemouth. But listen, I mean, he did allude in his press conference to a bit of illness and things like that, and we know Hartman had been ill for a week or so. He left the international break, so maybe there is something in that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, look, he's just got to be more ruthless, I think, and I think regardless of whether Hartman was going to be on the bench or not, or was going to be in the squad, I don't think he'd have started today. I think he was going to go with Pires. I think Hartman came back in last game, because Pires was suspended. So I think Parker almost has to drop a little bit of the nice guy. I get it. He's well loved by his players and things like that. And, but I want players to be disappointed. I want Hartman to think, shit, we're in World Cup year now and I've lost my place. And I'm not just sat on the bench. I'm sat at home. I'm not even on that plane to Bournemouth. You've got to have competitiveness in this squad. And I think for too long, there's one or two players who are just a little bit too comfortable. And I think I'd have probably dropped Walker had he not picked up that fifth yellow. I'd have probably kind of gone, I think it's probably time for Walker to have a rest. And I think at times the team, as we've said before, the team's almost picked itself. And you want a reaction out of these players. I want Hartman knocking on his door, probably Christmas Day, Boxing Day, going, am I getting a chance against Everton? Because I really don't want to be sat at home. I really don't want to be wandering around Trafford Centre. I want to be playing. And I think you want players with that edge. And if Hartman's got anything about it, he will be busting a gut in training down at Gorthorpe this week to make sure he's at least on the bench against Everton on the 27th.
Yeah, and then tracks back if he does get on the field.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
That's the only currency. With doing that ever again, can he? Really?
That's the only currency you can pay in now, and that should be that message now should go to all those players that I don't give a stuff whether you've played in the World Club Championship for Benfica and Daz Bentley don't like you. You're going to sit on the bench if you float around and don't track back.
But that's what he said today, isn't it? That's his implicit. That's the subtext today. Yeah. And it's worked, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you look at Fleming when he went off, who'd done all that hard work, like you say, very accurately, softened up the defence a little bit for Broja. And he looked absolutely gutted when he got substituted, Fleming. And you want to see that, don't you? You want to see a player there. There was none of that, like, this has been an horrible game for an hour. I'm glad to be out of it. Like, good luck, Broja, He was, like, gutted because he clearly thought that he might be able to get a sniff or something and get the point for us. But, that is a good sign on the team spirit. And he's come out as Parker and has made it very clear that he thinks the team is united. They have got a good spirit. People are sceptical of that because of the results. But there was a fair bit of evidence today that suggested he's right, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can have your fancy downs and your former Champions League players and all that kind of business, but they've still got to put a shift in. I don't give a shit. It's, we know what the old time saying is, and Parker's done that with his selection. And with regards to the likes of Edwards, yeah, people are clamouring for him to start, but it's a very nice little sucker punch to give sides, and it's worked these past few weeks coming on for the last 20, half hour, him and Broja, these players that have a little bit more once they've been softened up a little bit, and we've seen an equaliser today. We scored a couple last week. We nearly got a draw against Newcastle. So that, as a game plan, seems to be working. It's just, again, I'll say, cut the shit out and we'll be in a far better position.
Execution, isn't it? It's
Yes.
just executing that.
100%.
And Greavesy, Joe Worrell was suggested on this podcast that he might be a solution for the simple fact that he knows how to defend. He didn't put a foot wrong.
No, it didn't really. I mean, I don't think they were that good. I mean, there were a few efforts from range and things like that, but I think he just brings a stability, doesn't he? I mean, he's been there, he's seen it. He's probably the slowest centre-back pairing we've seen in a long while, Ekdal and him. But, Ekdal's a full international.
You've got the pace of Josh Lauren there to compensate, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it is, yeah, absolutely. I think I said on the preview pod, I'd like to see Worrell come in for Ekdal if we are going to play with Esteve, and we've played without him today because of injury. You can't. I don't think you can play Ekdal and Worrell together as a long-term solution because they're both quite slow. But I think Worrell probably just shades it in that been there, done it. He's a bit taller. He's just got a bit more about him. He's a bit more rugged, shall we say? But yeah, absolutely superb. And no worries here going up against Everton with them two in centre half positions if need be. Really, I mean, like I say, ideally it'd be Esteve and Worrell for me. But we'll see how that pans out with Big Steve's injury.
Yeah, and look, let's not get carried away. It wasn't a great performance, and if it had ended 1-0, maybe we'd be saying it'd be a slightly different tone to what we were saying. But to be fair, it has been, as you were suggesting, Woody. It has been like that for quite a few games where we might have had a slightly different tone if somebody hadn't made a stupid individual error or two stupid individual errors. I don't count that as an individual error as such.
No.
He just slips, doesn't he? But
yeah. And about 5 minutes later, one of their centre halves at the other end did exactly the same thing. But there wasn't the same kind of finish or effort as there was for Bournemouth's goal. But it's really quite simple. If you do not make the mistakes, you're in games, and it's taking that 30,000-foot view rather than the just wanting to have a go because you've never particularly liked Parker or just having a go. It's at some point you've got to really, just take yourself out from the emotion of the situation and try and see what's going on and what's working, because that's what Parker's doing, and he's the only bugger who can actually sort it out at this present moment in time.
Yeah. Everton next, Greavesy. We'll get into that more in the debrief that we'll record on Sunday. But just quickly before we finish off, I mean, we're football fans, aren't we? We can't resist that little bit of optimism now. But 3 points against Everton, and suddenly it does feel a very different situation, doesn't it?
It does, and I think that shows you what the Premier League's like. You get a draw and a win, and then you kind of go, right, who've we got next? It's that take it one game at a time. But, you get a positive result against Everton, and results go your way, and suddenly you're just chipping away at that 5 points. You're chipping away. Let's look at it after this final fixtures from tonight and any that are on tomorrow. If it remains 5 points, suddenly then Everton, you're getting something against Everton and results go your way and it becomes 2 points. That is then when you're within touching distance going into January. That whole can Parker persuade players to come in feels a bit easier if you're 2 points, 3 points, even 4 points rather than 5 points. You know what I mean? In terms of that, it's every point you can chip back between now and the end of January, even if you're still down there and under the dotted line, every point that you can claw back, I think, becomes slightly easier for somebody to go, you know what, a 6-month loan, I could be a bit of a hero here, and that's it. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get some festive cheer at Turf Moor, because we've not had any of that for a while. But yeah, hopefully 3 points a week today, in fact.
Yeah, and it needs to be Fortress Turf Moor for that one, doesn't it? It needs to be a proper, it's not Boxing Day, but Boxing Day style atmosphere and everyone behind the team, and see if we can't salvage something from this season. Final word to you, Woody. Are you going to have a more enjoyable Saturday? I mean, does it affect your mood? It does for me, I must admit.
Well, it does. Yeah. I mean, I hate coming on a rapid reaction after we've lost, because I'm not processing it. You know what I mean? It's just you're grumpy and it lasts for the rest of the weekend. Today feels a little bit like a win. It's not quite as as excitable, but I'm in a far better mood. Yeah. Well played.
Yeah, shepherd's pie is waiting for me, Greavesy. What's Saturday night got in store for you?
Was that a euphemism, Simon?
We're having paella. I went and got the ingredients earlier, so I'm quite. As soon as we finish this, I'm going to be cooking a paella. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that.
Excellent. That's a Premier League option for you, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. I shall look forward to my League 2 lunch in a little while. All right. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back, don't forget, tomorrow for the full debrief with different views and different perspectives, and going a little bit deeper into that performance and what it means for the Clarets. But thanks very much for joining us, and until then, up the Clarets.